some of these bills are not for the people, they're not for the community. And again, following on your conversation, you highlighted that the bills are here to help the government agencies to establish the ICTA agency to support the government infrastructure. How comes we are not speaking on supporting innovation in most of these startups? Going through some of these bills, it got to highlight that it will be slowing down the growth and most of the startups for them to be innovative and for them now to go to the next level. And over to you, Ndeto, as you carry on.
Thank you. I've been listening to the PS, and I'm quite happy to hear some of the things that he has said. And basically, I feel like right now we have the momentum and we have the opportunity needed to just focus on this bill and talk about what it is about. So in the spirit of participating and just giving the feedback that we want, because we've said it is a conversation between us, I would like to first of all start with one of the major pain points, and I would like to just address this bill from a perspective that that affects a lot of Kenyans. So the momentum and we have the opportunity needed to just focus on this. A significant amount of feedback has already been circulated and submitted to the government. Sorry, let me just water. The sentiment in every conversation we've had about this bill is very clear. This bill enrages people, and it is raising more questions than it is answering. In today's world, where accreditation, traditional accreditation, it's not being done in tech, it's ineffective. Because according to the bill, you need to be accredited. What do you need to be accredited? It's some technical qualifications, experience, and ICT resources. So my questions come in. For this technical qualifications, how do we verify these credentials? How do we determine, quantify these credentials and experience given the broad and dynamic nature of technology as it is in the world right now? How can we accurately gauge these qualifications? Second thing, leadership and industry. Who is going to lead these efforts? Who is going to be in the position of accrediting other people, setting these standards? And the reason I ask this question is because I feel it is very fair to judge someone by their work, especially if it is a bill that's supposed to be a law. This bill does not give us the feeling that there are professionals who understand what is happening within the landscape, crafting up our bills. It is very out of touch with reality. Because let's move on to the next point. What is the benefit of the bill? What does this bill offer us? We, on the other hand, we've earned skills. We've gained skills over a very long time. And, tech is thriving. We're doing what we can. But then the government wants to step in here, put some barriers, and introduce accreditation. So what do I get from this organization? It is not clear what benefits I will get by being part of this organization, being accredited by this organization. I don't see any benefits. Is it being allowed to practice on your own hard-earned skills? Is that, those are the questions that are in my head. So this bill is also supposed to support tech, but I think it's already thriving. We have a formula that works. Tech has had the freedom and autonomy to move how it wants. We have organizations that are doing, world-class services and all. Why should the government really come in and start imposing bottlenecks and barriers on how to do this? Isn't the better approach to come to the ground, figure out who are these people that have all this traction, figure out all these people who have done something and work with them to push it forward? Because again, looking at the bill, it does not give me a lot of confidence that we have professionals who are actually thinking about the landscape in a realistic manner and coming up with these laws. I'm going to admit one thing. It does seem to provide an infrastructure for a more powerful autonomous body that does what it needs to, that can push tech on its own. But I feel like it's taking the wrong approach. This is not how that body that's supposed to bring change should do it. And finally, I feel like the government should now pour resources into an industry that already has traction and has found its path, and figure out how to make standards and policies that work with these companies. We have some of the biggest companies in the world in Kenya. We can figure out how to work with these companies and they can be supported, because this other approach for the bill seems like, we were already doing something, but now the government wants involvement. But it's not the kind of involvement that we want. We will suggest support the local industry, figure out how they're working and navigating this field, and we can move on from there. That covers what I wanted to say in terms of how I feel this bill will impact the ground as it is. So I want to ask for a response, at least from somebody, from either the CEO of ICTA, or the PS, and we can get moving on to the next session, where I'm going to invite more experts to speak about what is happening. Thank you. I would love to hear any comments you
Okay.
have, engineer. Just
Okay.
briefly as we move on to the next one.
Ndeto, thank you very much for this feedback, and also to know that you've had even previous engagement in the space before on the same issue. I want to say, here we have ICT professionals and experts. I would recommend, as you point an issue, give us what you recommend so that we are able, because we want to make it better. We want it to serve the industry. We want to serve our people. So I agree the issue of accreditation is an issue that needs clarity, and we'll have our colleague, the CEO of ICT Authority, to comment. But this is an area we can agree. The accreditation we had in mind is to accreditation for those serving the government, so that when you are just serving the government, not for the industry, we already have regulations within the sector. We have communications authority that's regulating for the entire industry, but those entities serving government and being given what you've said, we have a very mature industry which really we respect and we are proud of. But we would like to say, when they're engaging government, they be accredited. But we are open to recommendations that professionals we are willing to engage. What benefit to the bill you mentioned you want to see as an industry player, as a professional, or as a player? That how will this bill really help you? We believe this bill should be able to make it easy for the industry to engage with government. It should be able to support the tech community, and that's the purpose of us even engaging. And you acknowledge one part, that it gives an autonomous body. That's one of the things we thought we needed, an entity that can actually work and fulfill the function, the thinking of government in the ICT space, that you have an agency that can work with the private sector. So this bill is at the stage of engaging the stakeholders, like what we are doing now, and we are welcoming feedback on how we can work on it. We are proud of what the industry in Kenya are doing. And indeed, we are looking at how can we hand over most of the infrastructure works to be done by the private sector. And we are happy to see the connectivity. We're looking at the mobile network, how our private sector have done. They've done us very proud, position us very well in terms of capacity, the speeds, the network average, excellent. On the broadband connectivity, fixed broadband, we're still very low.
Uh,
We have
kindly let us stick to engineer. Kindly let's make the responses short and strictly in the ICTA bill that we're discussing tonight.
Okay. So lastly, the area that we still see a huge gap in the sector is the broadband connectivity, fiber to home. At the moment, you have about 1.2 million fixed broadband connectivity. Kenya Power has connected now close to 9.6. We believe we can do much by working with private sector to enhance that. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer. What I am picking is that the government is willing to work with us, we who are practicing tech in different professionals. But again, looking at some of the proposed, for example, Clause 27, accreditation of service providers. This clause, reading the data that we've collected from the people, they're saying we should do away with some of these clauses because it's not showing that the government is working for us, rather it is working against us to kill innovation and to kill our skills that we are really we are really working on to put food on our tables and for us to be able to build the economy in general. We'll go over to the speakers that we will be having tonight. I'd like to request Ben Roberts to request to be a speaker, and also Fiona, you'll speak next after me. Then we'll have Kate. Kate, kindly please request to be a speaker. Tesh, please request to be a speaker, and Ali Hussein, please request to be a speaker. Over to you, Fiona, then we can carry on.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Engineer Tanui, for just joining us, and Mr. Stanley Kimanguya, CEO ICTA, for joining us. I'm going to go straight into the bill, and I'm starting off with the introduction. When you listen to what Engineer Tanui is saying and read the introduction part, just paragraph of the bill, a bill for an act of parliament to provide for the establishment of the Information and Communication Technology Authority to promote the provision of secure, efficient, and effective information and communication technology resources and services to facilitate the integration of ICT in delivery of public services and for connected purposes. That introduction needs to be readjusted to match what Engineer Tanui has just presented, and also to match what is on the ICT Authority's current website, which is the reason why in 2013, as industry, we supported the establishment of ICT Authority. We have gaps within the government setup, and there's a lot within government that ICT Authority should be doing, the public service, so to say. And so if we adjust this entire document to be inward facing, looking at what we need done within the different ministries, state agencies, parastatals, in as far as ICT deployment, capacity, skills, and requirements are done, then we'll have gone a long way. It is embarrassing that in this day and age, we still have some ICT departments doing tenders for PDF, Adobe. You know, when you see things like that, it means there's a failure with the institution that we set up to help us with that. There's been a failure on the in-facing function of ICT Authority, and because ICT Authority has felt they needed to be outgoing, they were not set up to be out-facing, and so the regulatory function remains with the industry regulator. I'll let others come in and explain issues on the regulatory space. And so for purposes of, if ICTA wants to remain and functional and relevant to the space, where we have a gap is making sure that all ICT departments are properly staffed with the right skills. They understand the ERPs and what they are doing. Yes, there's been a lot of digitization, but digitization is happening at government, county government level, we've seen ICT Authority work very well with the county governments. We've not seen and felt ICT Authority's role with other state agencies. There's a lot of back and forth and confusing communication with the state agencies, other state agencies, and I have copies of letters to showing that communication, indicating that there is confusion on who the regulator is. Can this bill be worded the way your function is worded within the website, where you state that the authority is tasked with rationalizing and streamlining the management of all Government of Kenya ICT functions, period. We have that, then within that you can accredit your teams. Within that you can do the professional registration, whatever it is you want to do within that, because it's in the privy and scope of what you need to do as the oversight entity for the government. And then that also comes in and it will affect the definitions that you have. Where you're talking of entities, the entities you need to oversight are the national government entities, the county government entities, and state entities, and all the public service entities. You exclude the private sector. Private sector oversight remains with the Communication Authority, which has also issued a license to you as ICT Authority. That will also have an impact on the subsequent definitions that you have, and that means then you cannot have regulatory responsibility. And so the definitions of regulation of the regulatory nudges that you want to address is going to go, and the clauses that have to do with that have to go. I will stop at that for now. Thank you so much, and I'll give us the slot to others to explain further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fiona, for that. Ben, you'll go next. So getting from what Fiona is saying, engineer, you need to start in working in-house cleaning to improve your infrastructure before you do the external infrastructure that you're trying to implement through the bills. We've already been having laws and policies that have been working and standards that we have been following as tech practitioners. What to you, Ben?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I think for me it's relatively simple, right? The early clauses of the bill, particularly clause 7, it goes into some detail of what the ICT Authority is supposed to do. We in the industry are very familiar with the ICT Authority. They've been around for some considerable time. And so clause 7 introduces some functions of the ICT Authority, listing some of the things it does now already. So it's operating government fiber infrastructure, it's delivering certain ICT services to government. This is absolutely fine. I mean, the government has a state corporation which is delivering ICT services to the government. Now, the problem, it also mentions in that clause 7 that part of the role of ICT Authority is to commercialize those resources. So ICT Authority is tasked with looking after some government fiber backbone, which is owned by the government, which is the what they call the NOFB backbone. But it's looking after that. It's owning that asset, commercializing it too. Now, the fundamental problem with this bill is that Section 7 very clearly lays out ICT Authority as an ICT services organization, an ICT services company, albeit a state-owned company. So it's a state-owned company delivering ICT services. It's absolutely fine for the state to have state-owned corporations that are offering ICT services. They can offer them to government. They can even go and offer them to the private sector. There is no problem with investments from the state having state-owned corporations. But by the very nature of the services that is being offered by the ICT Authority, operating a fiber backbone, commercializing those, they require to be licensed by the Communications Authority. So the Communications Authority is the regulator for the sector. It is the only regulator for the sector currently, and it is defined in the Communications, the KIC Act, the Kenya Information Communications Act. So the Communications Authority is the regulator. It licenses people who want to operate ICT services. ICT Authority is an operator of ICT services. It requires a license to operate their services. So it's a licensee of the Communications Authority. Absolutely fine. Other companies, Safaricom is also a licensee of the Communications Authority, Liquid Telecom, the company I work for. A whole bunch of companies are operating similar sorts of services. There's about 5 or 6 or 7 companies operating backbone infrastructure in Kenya, including KPLC, Kutraco, Kenya Power, Liquid Telecom, Access Kenya, Safaricom, Airtel, Jamii Telecom. So there's just a bunch of them. And then there are many more companies operating the last mile fiber. So ICT Authority is a state-owned corporation doing this type of services. But as it's an operator, it can't have any regulatory powers at all. We can't have a situation where somebody who is an operator and a player in the space of an industry is then regulating other players who are operating the similar service. It's just a conflict of interest. There's no way that is going to work. The later clauses in the bill say that ICT services companies have to write to ICT Authority to ask for permission when they're deploying infrastructure, to ask for permission and authorization to deploy ICT infrastructure. Now, we're at a par here. We're at a level. There's no authority here, right? ICTA is a licensed authority, a licensed service provider, and they're doing fiber. I'm also doing fiber. But imagine a customer says, "I'd like you to put fiber into my building," and but I have to write to another provider to ask for permission. It's not going to fly. It's not going to fly at all. So the flaw with the bill is that all the regulatory powers that are being added here aren't supposed to be